be seen on his beautiful white suit. He had endearing ways of purring and snuggling. He was scrupulously honest. And then a domestic tragedy took place at Ingleside. Jack Frost had kittens. It would be vain to try to picture Susan's triumph. Had she not always insisted that that cat would turn out to be a delusion and a snare? Now they could see for themselves. Rilla kept one of the kittens, a very pretty one, with peculiarly sleek, glossy fur of a dark yellow crossed by orange stripes, and large, satiny golden ears. She called it Goldie, and the name seemed appropriate enough to the little frolicsome creature, which during its kittenhood gave no indication of the sinister nature it really possessed. Susan, of course, warned the family that no good could be expected from any offspring of that diabolical Jack Frost. But Susan's Cassandra-like croakings were unheeded. The Blythes had been so accustomed to regard Jack Frost as a member of the male sex that they could not get out of the habit, so they continually used the masculine pronoun, although the result was ludicrous. Visitors used to be quite electrified when Rilla referred casually to Jack and his kitten, or told Goldie sternly, "Go to your mother and get him to wash your fur." "It is not decent, Mrs. Doctor, dear," poor Susan would say bitterly. She herself compromised by always referring to Jack as it, or the white beast, and one heart at least did not ache when it was accidentally poisoned the following winter. In a year's time, Goldie became so manifestly an inadequate name for the orange kitten that Walter, who was just then reading Stevenson's story, changed it to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In his Dr. Jekyll mood, the cat was a drowsy, affectionate, domestic, cushion-loving puss who liked petting and gloried in being nursed and patted. Especially did he love to lie on his back and have his sleek, cream-colored throat stroked gently, while he purred in somnolent satisfaction. He was a notable purrer. Never had there been an Ingleside cat who purred so constantly and so ecstatically. "The only thing I envy a cat is its purr," remarked Dr. Blythe once, listening to Doc's resonant melody. "It is the most contented sound in the world." Doc was very handsome. His every movement was grace, his poses magnificent. When he folded his long, dusky-ringed tail about his feet and sat him down on the veranda to gaze steadily into space for long intervals, the Blythes felt that an Egyptian sphinx could not have made a more fitting deity of the portal. When the Mr. Hyde mood came upon him, which it invariably did before rain or wind, he was a wild thing with changed eyes. The transformation always came suddenly. He would spring fiercely from a reverie with a savage snarl and bite at any restraining or caressing hand. His fur seemed to grow darker, and his eyes gleamed with a diabolical light. There was really an unearthly beauty about him. If the change happened in the twilight, all the Ingleside folk felt a certain terror of him. At such times he was a fearsome beast, and only Rilla defended him, asserting that he was such a nice prowly cat. Certainly he prowled. Dr. Jekyll loved new milk. Mr. Hyde would not touch milk and growled over his meat. Dr. Jekyll came down the stairs so silently that no one could hear him. Mr. Hyde made his tread as heavy as a man's. Several evenings when Susan was alone in the house, he scared her stiff, as she declared, by doing this. He would sit in the middle of the kitchen floor, with his terrible eyes fixed unwinkingly upon hers for an hour at a time. This played havoc with her nerves, but poor Susan really held him in too much awe to try to drive him out. Once she had dared to throw a stick at him, and he had promptly made a savage leap towards her. Susan rushed out of doors and never attempted to meddle with Mr. Hyde again, though she visited his misdeeds upon the innocent Dr. Jekyll, chasing him out of her domain whenever he dared to poke his nose in, and denying him certain savoury tidbits for which he yearned. "The many friends of Miss Faith Meredith, Gerald Meredith, and James Blythe," read Susan, rolling the names like sweet morsels under her tongue, "were very much pleased to welcome them home a few weeks ago from Redmond College. James Blythe, who was graduated in arts in 1913, had just completed his first year in medicine. "Faith Meredith has really got to be the handsomest creature I ever saw," commented Miss Cornelia, above her fillet crochet. "It's amazing how those children came on after Rosemary West went to the manse. People have almost forgotten what imps of mischief they were once. And, dearie, will you ever forget the way they used to carry on? It's really surprising how well Rosemary got on with them. She's more like a chum than a stepmother. They all love her, and Una adores her. As for that little Bruce, Una just makes a perfect slave of herself to him. Of course, he is a darling. But did you ever see any child look as much like an aunt as he looks like his Aunt Ellen? He's just as dark and just as emphatic. I can't see a feature of Rosemary in him. Norman Douglas always vows at the top of his voice that the stork meant Bruce for him and Ellen and took him to the manse by mistake." "Bruce adores Jem," said Mrs. Blythe. "When he comes over here, he follows Jem about like a faithful little dog, looking up at him from under his black brows. He would do anything for Jem, I believe." "Are Jem and Faith going to make a match of it?" Mrs. Blythe smiled. It was well known that Miss Cornelia, who had been such a virulent man-hater at one time, had actually taken to matchmaking in her declining years. "They are only good friends yet, Miss Cornelia." "Very good friends, believe me," said Miss Cornelia emphatically. "I hear all about the doings of the young fry." "I have no doubt that Mary Vance sees that you do, Mrs. Marshall Elliott," said Susan significantly. "But I think it is a shame to talk about children making matches." "Children? Jem is 21 and Faith is 19, retorted Miss Cornelia. "You must not forget, Susan, that we old folks are not the only grown-up people in the world." Outraged Susan, who detested any reference to her age, not from vanity but from a haunting dread that people might come to think her too old to work, returned to her notes. "Carl Meredith and Shirley Blythe came home last Friday evening from Queen's Academy. We understand that Carl will be in charge of the school at Harbour Head next year, and we are sure he will be a popular and successful teacher." "He will teach the children all there is to know about bugs, anyhow," said Miss Cornelia. "He is through with Queen's now, and Mr. Meredith and Rosemary wanted him to go right on to Redmond in the fall, but Carl has a very independent streak in him and means to earn part of his own way through college. He'll be all the better for it." "Walter Blythe, who has been teaching for the past 2 years at Lowbridge, has resigned," read Susan. "He intends going to Redmond this fall." "Is Walter quite strong enough for Redmond yet?" queried Miss Cornelia anxiously. "We hope that he will be by the fall," said Mrs. Blythe. "An idle summer in the open air and sunshine will do a great deal for him." "Typhoid is a hard thing to get over," said Miss Cornelia emphatically, "especially when one has had such a close shave as Walter had. I think he'd do well to stay out of college another year. But then he's so ambitious. Are Di and Nan going too?" "Yes, they both wanted to teach another year, but Gilbert thinks they had better go to Redmond this fall." "Well, I'm glad of that. They'll keep an eye on Walter and see that he doesn't study too hard. I suppose," continued Miss Cornelia with a side glance at Susan, "that after the snub I got a few minutes ago, it will not be safe for me to suggest that Jerry Meredith is making sheep's eyes at Nan." Susan ignored this, and Mrs. Blythe laughed again. "Dear Miss Cornelia, I have my hands full, haven't I, with all these boys and girls sweethearting around me? If I took it seriously, it would quite crush me, but I don't. It is too hard yet to realize that they've grown up. When I look at those 2 tall sons of mine, I wonder if they can possibly be the fat, sweet, dimpled babies I kissed and cuddled and sang to slumber the other day. Only the other day, Miss Cornelia. Wasn't Jem the dearest baby in the old house of dreams? And now he's a B.A. and accused of courting." "We're all growing older," sighed Miss Cornelia. "The only part of me that feels old."